Investor Connect podcast program. This is Hall T. Martin. I'm the host of the show, in which we interview angel investors, venture capital, private equity, family offices, and many other investor groups for startups and growth companies. I hope you enjoy this episode. Thank you for joining us. Well, hello, this is Hall Martin with Investor Connect. Today we're here with Martin Mulvihill of Safer Made. Martin, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Great. So what was your background before investing in early stage companies? What did you do before this?
Yeah, before this, my training is actually as a chemist. So I got my PhD in chemistry at UC Berkeley, and then I went on to start the Berkeley Center for Green Chemistry, where we were always pushing to develop chemicals and products that were safer for human health and the environment. And it was through that work that I met the foundation who would be the catalyst for creating Safer Made, and also how I met my partner at Safer Made, Adrian. And so the two of us came together, he from the finance side and me from the chemistry side, to put together Safer Made back in 2016.
Great. So what excites you today? What gets you really jazzed?
I love the work I do. I think both chemistry and finance are curiosity-driven enterprises. And so the opportunity to talk to folks who are making the next generation of safer chemicals, things like replacements for plastic, replacements for bisphenol A, for phthalates, that are enabling the next generation of consumer products that are going to be safer and more sustainable. I can't wait to get to work every morning.
Well, that's great. So for those investors out there that want to invest in the health and wellness sector, what would you advise them to do before they do so?
Yeah, I think that health and wellness is a very broad area. And so one of the things that we do, and I encourage everyone should do, is spend a lot of time talking to the leaders in the sector. So as a fund, we spend a lot of time talking to leading brands and retailers in textile and apparel, in formulated goods, a little bit in food and food packaging, to really understand what are their pain points. It helps us be better at identifying startups that are really going to make a difference to the businesses that are out there today in the health and wellness sector. And it also gives us an opportunity to share ideas, to share interesting new technologies we're seeing with people who've been in the field longer and get their feedback. And we find that it's a very productive conversation that we have with some of the large incumbents. It's a great source of deal flow for us and a great source of validation when we're making investments.
So for people on the other side of that table, the CEOs running startups in that sector, what should they know before they go into that sector with a new startup?
Yeah, so I think we invest in two types of startups, and the CEOs tend to be quite different. So either you're bringing a new consumer product to market, right? So you're bringing something that people are going to buy. Examples in our portfolio are a brand called Repurpose that has compostable single-use food service items you can buy in the grocery store, or Force of Nature, a cleaning product brand. Those CEOs really need to know their channel strategy. They need to have a clear idea of how they are going to manage inventory, deliver inventory, what their channel approach will be, how they're going to raise their profile. There's a lot of specific questions that they need to ask. For CEOs that are on the other side of the business, so the other type of business we invest in are companies that have chemicals or materials that, say, a Patagonia or a seventh generation would be interested in using. So they need to understand the supply chain. So they need to understand where they're going to fit into the products that eventually become a Patagonia ski jacket or a seventh generation laundry detergent. And what's the value proposition, not only for the end consumer, but also for where they sit in the value chain. And I think it is critically important that the CEOs of either type of company really understand the ecosystem that they're working in.
So how do you see this industry evolving? What changes do you see coming up?
Yeah, I think this is a great time to be thinking about chemistry. It really is at the intersection of anything you touch, smell, feel, interact with on a daily basis. So I think this trend towards health and wellness started with the organic food movement. And if you look at where the organic food movement was 10 years ago, that's going to be where all the rest of our stuff is in the next 5 to 10 years. So just like people are looking at ingredient labels, thinking about sourcing of food, they're beginning to do the same in sectors like personal care products and textile and apparel. So if we're going to be successful, we need to be investing in that infrastructure, in the things that will make safer and more healthy products possible in the near term. And I think how organic food has grown is a great example.
So tell us more about your fund in this space and what's your investment thesis for it?
Yeah, so our fund, we're a relatively small seed Series A venture capital fund. We invest in across the sectors that we've been talking about. Our investment thesis is that at similar cost and performance, consumers are going to choose things that are better for themselves and the environment. And so when we're looking at an early stage startup, we're looking for two things. One, that they have a technology or a product that really is differentiated from the current offerings out there. And two, that the consumer is going to hear about it because it really is the consumer, young families, and other folks that are driving this change.
And what's your criteria specifically that you look for startups that you want to fund? Do they have to have revenue? Do they have to be in a certain area? What do you look for?
Yeah, so for brands, we're often looking for what we call early revenue. So somewhere around $1 million, but that's still very early in the brand side of things. So some traction, some demonstration that they know how to bring something to market. On the chemical or material side, or things like packaging, we'll often invest pre-revenue. So there we're looking for a material or a technology that has some level of validation. They've often done, say, pilot projects with potential end consumer. And that's the time when we'd be ready to come in and lead a seed round.
So are there one or two startups you can call out that fit that thesis that you've invested in?
Yeah, that at similar cost and performance, people are going to prefer products that are better for them and the environment. That's the underlying financial thesis behind what we do.
Great. So what are the challenges that startups face working in this space? It seemed like are there regulatory or technical or market issues that they have to overcome?
Yeah, it always depends a little bit on what sort of product is being brought to market. We have one company that's developing a new insect repellent, so there is some regulatory hurdles there. We have a packaging company that's developing paper packaging to displace plastic. The barriers there are much more on execution, cost, performance. It always looks different company to company, and that's part of what makes the work so exciting. But usually the sort of companies we invest in have some remaining technical risk and or market risk that we're helping them address through our funding and to get them to the next stage.
So are there any subsectors or particular applications you think are good immediate opportunities for investors to pursue? And if so, which ones?
Yeah, when we take a look back at kind of how our pipeline has shifted in the last few years, we have seen an explosion in companies in the packaging sector. It's always been something that's important for us. It's a ton of single-use plastic out there, and people, I think, are increasingly aware of the challenges it's creating for the ocean environment and others. And so we're seeing a lot more interesting deal flow in packaging. New chemistries that can improve the performance of fiber or paper-based packaging, as well as interesting business models, ways to make reusable materials more convenient for the end consumer. So that's an area where we're seeing a lot of new deal flow compared to years past.
Well, that's quite helpful. So in the last few minutes that we have here, what else should we cover that we haven't?
Yeah, I think the other thing that might make our fund a little bit unique is that we do have a mission focus. We're always investing in companies that eliminate hazardous chemicals. And that's something that we take very seriously, and we report to our LPs the amount of carbon dioxide, the amount of hazardous chemicals, the amount of waste eliminated through the successful growth of our companies. And so I think that it is important to think about the impact that you want to have as an investor and to track that impact. And that's certainly something that we do and that we're really proud of the impact we're having out there, in addition to building companies that are financially successful.
Well, that's great. Well, how best for listeners to get back in touch with you?
Absolutely. Through LinkedIn and our website, safermade.net, or they can reach out to me directly at martin.mulvihill@safermade.net.
Great. We'll put those in the show notes. I want to thank you for joining us today and hope to have you back for a follow-up soon.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Investor Connect helps investors interested in startup funding. In this podcast series, experienced investors share their experience and advice. You can learn more at investorconnect.org. Paul T. Martin is the director of Investor Connect, which is a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to the education of investors for early-stage funding. All opinions expressed by Hall and podcast guests are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinion of Investor Connect. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon as a basis for investment decisions.